Great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through a few more slides. Well, first of all, I'm going to take you through the Blackboard space that we have. Hopefully, some of you have been on there already. So this is Contemporary Themes in Chemistry, course content. If we scroll down past everyone else's to my section, I've already warned you that there are 8 timetable classes. It's not 1 a week, it's 2 a week. But the videos are very short, so they shouldn't take up too much of your time. And actually, I find that this stuff that happens in the classroom is where most of the learning actually happens. So I prefer to keep that. It's what I used to do before the pandemic. And when they said during the pandemic, oh, let's do one on campus and one with like an hour's worth of videos, I said, no, don't want to do that. So I kept what I was already doing. So I've just got a little introduction about industrial biotechnology if anyone's interested. There's the MIB website, which is where most of the researchers live. Well, don't live there. And that's where my office is, which is why I have stuff in the concourse here every week, because you can't get into the MIB to see me. Got a little bit about me and my background. These are some clips from Zoom recordings last year when I was editing them. You can sort of try and guess what I was trying to explain in each of them. And then this is the timetable for the 7 short videos with each of the face-to-face sessions, the drop-in sessions, should you need them, and then the last session right before Christmas, Professor Budd and Dr. Atfield will be coming back in, and we will be going over whatever you like from the whole course. You'll probably be a bit sick of me because you'll already have seen me 7 times, so maybe you'll want to ask them most of the questions. I've done a little bit on well-being and workload, but I'll come on to that in some of the slides. So this folder has the videos. I've embedded them in Blackboard, even though they're on YouTube as well. And there's 1 video for each feedback class. This one has the lecture slides that I use to make the videos. So if you want to make your own notes and you're like, oh, that's a nice diagram, just open the presentation, copy and paste it, modify it, change the colors, whatever helps you to revise. I've also got some lecture notes that I used to hand out a few years ago, but it's not in the same order because students requested that they learn about the enzymes in a different order 1 year because it made more sense, so I changed it. So the actual booklet doesn't have them in that order, but it still has the same enzymes and the same content. There's a section on how will I be assessed where I go through an exam paper from, I think it's 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and I just say, oh, here's a type of question that tests whether you know whether something's more sustainable or not. Here's one that asks you to propose a mechanism and that kind of thing. There's some extra reading if anyone wants to learn a bit more about biochemical engineering or enzyme catalysis. There's some nice stuff here. There's also a searchable online textbook. So if you go to this link and there's something you don't understand, like, oh, genetic modification of bacteria, you can just search it here and it will take you to that textbook, which is used by undergraduate biologists. So that might help you if there's still things you don't understand. In the actual feedback classes, there will be worksheets. The worksheets are not there at the moment. I release them in the session, and then we go through them like that. However, if you really can't wait, because I get the past leaders who've done this course in second semester to redesign the questions so that they're actually relevant to you and what you're going to find difficult, not what I guess you're going to find difficult, I actually have leftover questions from previous years. So if you're like, oh, actually, I really want to answer some questions now, having watched the video, you can always open an old feedback class sheet, and I've also put the podcast from the previous one there. So these are different questions, different case studies. You might want to use them before, you might want to use them for revision, whatever you like, but I've put them all up there just in case you want to go through those as some extra exercises. Yeah, I think that's everything on Blackboard, so I'm just going to go through 1 or 2 more slides here. Great. So I've gone through that one, that's fine. So this is the spiel that I would normally do before the pandemic when everyone was learning through hour-long lectures and was like, Nick, why are you doing this? This is strange, this is weird. But I'll go through it anyway because someone might not have told you about it. So basically, the way people used to learn was in the actual lecture session, in a traditional lecture, you would be listening, reading, taking notes, very passive, not actually doing anything. Some people would prepare before the session, but most people wouldn't. So that was wasted time, in my opinion. And after the session, you would then do things like practicing questions, revising solutions, and learning from mistakes. Now, this stuff is difficult to do. You need help with this. This stuff is easy to do, listening to stuff, right? So I adopted a flipped learning approach before the pandemic. where you do the easy stuff on your own, watching the video, nice short videos, and then you do the applying, practicing, revising, learning mistakes with me in the room, and I can actually help you do that. And then, because you've now done this more difficult thing with me, you've got your time free for self-directed learning, something that's personal and relevant to you, rather than having to scramble trying to do this right at the end. And then emailing me the night before the exam saying, can you teach me all of this? And I'm sort of like, a bit late now. Much easier for us to do that in the sessions. So what I would suggest, and this is what people have reported, people who do this tend to get the most out of the sessions, is before the session, I would suggest that you, watch the video, learn from the content, take notes, pause, rewind, look things up, so on and so forth. Make sure you understand as much as possible. I predict that a 6-minute video should probably take you 12, 15 minutes to go through, or an 11-minute video might take you 20, maybe 30 minutes to go through. Not that much time, hopefully. In the session, we're always going to start by you looking over the notes that you've made, discussing and comparing those with others. So make sure you do sit with people in the session, because the first 5-10 minutes is going to be you talking about what you understood of the video, what you didn't understand, and that kind of thing. And I will go round and see what everyone understood and didn't understand, and then I can use that to address problems when I then set the questions that you can go through. Attempt the questions that are designed by the past leaders who took the module last year, so I'll pop them on the visualizer for you. And then you'll receive example answers and solutions that I will then demonstrate. It's like, here's how I would approach this. Here are some mistakes that I saw, not naming any names, but here's why you wouldn't do that, that kind of thing. And then after the session, you can review your notes, the feedback, the solutions that you acquired from this, and do whatever learning best fits you, because you've already done the difficult stuff here. Another reason why we're learning this way, if you read educational literature, so there are people who research education and what works well and what doesn't work well, they've actually found that this flipped model, where you learn on your own beforehand and then you discuss with people, is actually better. It gives people better exam results and it enhances their learning. So here are some papers about this, about it changing students' performance and attitudes towards chemistry. It's better for particularly organic chemistry, which is what we're going to be sort of applying today. It helps improve chemistry learning, and problem solving in class helps improve undergraduate learning. So I think, well, if there's that evidence there that it works so well, why would you not do that as a lecturer? This is another one that I like. So basically, in this lecture, in this lecture series and in university in general, we want you to do higher deep learning. We want you to be able to solve problems and apply concepts and know principles and use them in something you've not seen. However, a lot of students just focus on this lower surface level learning. I'll just remember it and it will just come out of my mind in the exam type thing. What we find is our students that do very well even if you just talk at them for an hour. Whereas we have students that don't do quite as well, but if you get them involved in active learning and discussing in the classroom and doing stuff, actually their performance improves and this gap gets smaller and smaller. So the more interactivity there is in the session, and the more you're learning from each other and attempting things and getting them wrong and getting solutions, the smaller this gap becomes and the more people can achieve to the best of their potential. So that's why I've given you 7 feedback classes rather than just like 2 or 3 like other lecturers, because I think this is where the learning happens and this is where we can reduce some of those gaps and get everyone up to this higher, deep level of learning. 6 ways to well-being. Now, I think these aren't very well explained in some of the university's communication, so I'm just going to go through how I think they relate to student learning. So there is evidence to suggest that people that do these 5 things at the top report higher levels of mental well-being. So being active, so getting out of where you live, coming into university, walking here, coming into the lecture and doing something active. People who have that as a component of their day or their week tend to report high levels of mental well-being. So I try and make it that you can come here more often, to the drop-in sessions, to 2 sessions per week, and do something active, get involved, rather than just sitting there and being passive. People who connect with other people and chat to them and discuss them, and discuss with them and things like that, tend to report high levels of mental well-being. So I've tried to give you all opportunities to do that as much as possible by coming here, sitting with each other and talking. People who give their time and their knowledge. You come here with the knowledge that you took from the video, you give that to others by explaining it to them, they give back to you, and you can feel that you've actually helped other people with their learning. So people who report that there's a proportion of their life where they give to others also report high levels of mental well-being. People who take notice, not just about their studies, but about other people and what's going on around them. which again, you will be doing in this session. You'll be listening to what other people have learned and seeing where other people are and thinking, oh, actually, I didn't understand that either. That makes me feel better, that kind of thing. And people who learn and discover something new. So obviously, these will be learning sessions, and you will be learning as you go through. So I've tried to make it so that these sessions allow you to do those things as much as possible, because people who engage more in that tend to report high levels of mental well-being, and students with lower levels of mental well-being are less effective at studying. So I want you to be as effective as you can as students. We also have differences in student outcomes. So if you take any two groups of students, so these could be students of different ethnicity, international and home, students who live at home, students who live in halls of residence, male and female students, there is often a difference in the average marks they get or the rate at which they progress to university. But if you look at the underlying correlations, it's normally the group that has good relationships with staff and students does better. The group that feels a sense of belonging and community and that they're supported does better. The group that has social and peer networks that they can draw information from does better. And the group that has a good user experience of teaching, learning and assessment does better. So I've tried to make sure that your user experience of teaching and learning is short videos that are focused on what you need to do, not the history of this and that and all that kind of stuff. You've got ample opportunity to talk to the people not just next to you, but in front and behind you, and sit with different people and develop those networks. Feeling supported. I am here to support you in your actual learning rather than just talking at you like this, and feeling that you know what other people are doing and you know how well they're doing and how well you're doing, and that you actually belong here as part of a community. And hopefully by being able to drop in and see me on a Wednesday afternoon and talking to me as I come round, you'll have a good relationship with me and the other students in here. So I'm trying to give you all these opportunities because we know that they lead to success and progress in student populations. And the real reason that I learn this way is because when people fill in the end of unit questionnaires, they say that actually it seems to work and they really enjoy it. And I get very few negative comments, and they're normally things like, oh, at the beginning of this video, the first syllable was cut off or something like that. And I'm like, well, okay, if you say so. So here are some things from during the pandemic and before the pandemic, students saying that actually coming here and doing this does make them feel like part of a community with their fellow students and does help with mental health. Having just exactly the content you need without lots of extra material is useful. It's a better user experience, and everything's nice and concise. Having peer-assisted learning, working through questions similar to the exam to consolidate learning helps. This person was before the pandemic, said that this method, which only I was using, would be a good idea to use throughout chemistry. So that's a case of be careful what you wish for. And then also just people saying that they enjoyed it. Okay, so, if all of the comments said, actually, we really hated it and this didn't help at all, then I would change it in light of the evidence. But actually, the overwhelming majority of students say they do like it, and I always make little changes to try and make it better each year. So basically, that's just a little sort of motivational, this is why we're learning this way, this is what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to support each other. So hopefully, that's got you ready to study. And you've got 6 videos about 6 different enzymes with case studies to look at. You've got 6 unseen case studies that we will do in the feedback classes in this lecture theatre at 11 AM on Thursdays and Fridays. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for coming, and hopefully I will see you all tomorrow and we will do learning about our first biocatalyst. Thank you for coming.